Okay, today we're going to take a look at PowerTeacher and some of the assignment features as well as reports. Um, this is something that we rolled out last year, but this is just kind of a reminder in terms of the reports. So as I'm sitting here on my dashboard, what I would do, one of two things. I could go ahead and just click on reports, or I could actually go to the backpack and select the drop down menu that shows reports. In this tutorial, I'm just going to go ahead and just click on reports and show you what we're talking about here. So you've got the class attendance audit report, you've got the web ID and passcode letter. This is the same ID that parents need to log in to create their account for the PowerSchool parent piece of it. Please make sure you understand that this is not their password for PowerSchool. This is the passcode, which allows them to create an account. That code ties it to their student. So the system knows, Jimmy Jones also is tied to that passcode. So that's very important information. It's not a password. And I know that a lot of parents have a difficult time understanding that, as well as a lot of our staff members too. You also notice that all of our report cards are here, both in English and in Spanish. And you could also go ahead and do that. So in this case, I could say, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my fourth grade report cards. I just finished marking my reports, or my grade book, and all my grades are up to date, and I'm ready to go ahead and print those. But I wanted to get a sample. I wanted to see what it looks like first. So instead of doing all 31 of my students, I'm just going to go ahead and say I want to print a test print for only the first two pages, which will give me my first student on my list, the first page and the second page of the report card, which is really all I need to make sure all of my grades are transferring over. Go ahead and I can do that. I can say I'm going to put a watermark on that. I can say it's a sample, or you can pick any number of those other categories if you wanted to, or pick nothing and just go ahead and run it. I would suggest you do something on it, and sample is probably a good way to do that, just in case it gets lost. If you actually do go ahead through that printing process. But that is the way to do a report. So go ahead. I'm going to click on PowerTeacher to get back to my dashboard here. And so again, that's reports. You can also, like I said, get to that through your backpack if you wanted to. When you go through your backpack, it gives you your students list down to the side, the left side, and then you can see that you have some time or some ways to do different things, and one of those is to print a report for that student. So if you just wanted one student, that would probably be a better way to do that. All right, the next thing we're going to do is launch our gradebook. So I'm going to go ahead and click on launch, and here it is. My gradebook is open. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead, for demonstration purposes, is go to marking period 3, because marking period 3 hasn't started yet, and I just want to make sure that things are kept separate from the teacher's current information. If I was to do this and plan ahead on some of my assignments, you could do that. Just make sure the date falls within that marking period. So we're going to go ahead and start with just language first. And I know we've had some changes in our language arts report cards this year. And so I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to create that assignment. There's two ways to do that. You can add the assignment here in your score sheet tab. I can also add it in my assignments tab if I go down here and there's a plus symbol down here, and I can add that assignment as well. I'm going to go ahead and create it in score sheet at this point, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus, which allows me to start building my assignment. In this case, I'm going to go at a demo reading comprehension. Let's go test. You notice if I hit the tab key on my keyboard, automatically the abbreviation comes over from the name. It just actually takes that name and puts it as the abbreviation. If I wanted to change that, I could do that. Comprehension test 1. I'm going to make this a quiz. I'm going to make this worth 25 points, just for demonstration purposes again. And you notice that the score type is points. I included it in the final grade, and you notice that the publish is off. Well, if I'm going to include this in the final grade and it's going to determine the student's final grade, I want to make sure I click publish scores, Because when you don't do that, it's very sometimes confusing to parents to understand why their students getting a score, their final grade's different from what they could actually see on the parent viewer side of the grades, because they can see all the grades that you publish, but if you don't publish one but you're concluding it and it skews that final grade, they're not going to understand that, and they're going to be calling you and asking why that is the case and why can't I see that score. So good rule of thumb is if you're going to include it in the final grade, also include it to publish the scores. Next, we're going to take a look at the standards here, the standards tab. And for our assignment, which is demo reading comprehension test, we want to make sure it's tied to the correct language arts standard. And the one that makes sense to me would be reads and understands grade level text. So I'm going to go ahead and select the assignment there and go ahead and mark that. I also want to make sure that this is checked as well. Use assignment score to calculate standard scores. That needs to be checked to make sure that the assignment score, which is going to be 25 out of 25, actually pushes to that reads and understands grade level text score. That's important. So I'm going to say go ahead and say yes on that category right there. And you notice what I didn't do. I didn't create this correctly because I didn't put it in the right marking period like we talked about it originally. So I'm going to go ahead and say save. And real quickly, I just refreshed my gradebook and got it back in there. So there's my assignment that I created. You notice that there's an S here that tells you that it's pushed to that standard and it's tied to a standard. My assignment's tied to a standard. That's correct. You notice that it's gray, and that's because none of my students have any scores right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get back here, and I'm going to do a right click, and you'll notice there's a number of different ways to mark an assignment in your gradebook. You can mark it as collected, late, exempt, missing, or you can give it a grade and it's all broken down for you, or you can actually clear the score out, or you can do a fill score. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and fill scores just for time's sake, and I'm going to go ahead and say items with no score, or replace all. If you needed to, if you did a whole test and you did a pre-test and you wanted to do a post-test, but you wanted to keep the same assignment, you could do it that way. Probably not the best way to do that, I'll be honest. You should probably do a pre-test, not include it in the final grade, and then do a post-test and then include that in the final grade to look at some growth. You could do it that way. In this case, I'm just going to do items with no score because we don't have any scores. I'm going to say I'm just going to fill. Everybody's going to get the same score here. I'm going to say everybody gets 100%. All right. You will notice that it just turned green, and that means everybody has a score for that assignment, and they all have 100%, and they all have an A. If I was to take this and say I want to make this 50 points, it's going to say you cannot do that because the assignment is from 0 to 25, and 25 is the highest score you can have. So I say, okay, all right, well, I'm going to give this student a 19, and this is going to be update the standard score, and it updates it automatically to that standard score. All right. We're going to do a couple more assignments here real quick. I'm going to save them, before I move on. I want to double check that date right away this time. And I'm going to say this one's going to be Demo Comprehension Test 2. There we go. I'm going to make this one with 100 this time. Include it in the final grade. Let's publish it. So make sure that use assignment score to calculate standard scores is checked. You notice that it wasn't this time. Also, we're going to do the same one here, and we're going to say save. A category must be specified. I didn't pick a category. We didn't do that. We're going to do another quiz here. And we're going to say yes. You notice that it placed it before this one because this one has the date of 1/16 and this one has the date of 1/15. I'm going to go ahead and fill those scores. We're going to replace all or items with no score. In this case, it really wouldn't matter. I will show you what it would do if I gave this student a 95% or 95. Oops, it's worth 10. Oh, I thought I made it worth 100. My mistake. We're at 10 points. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill score. Now, if I replace all, the 10 is going to go away. So in this case, I'm going to say items with no score. I'm going to give everybody an 8 on this one. And you notice that everybody got an 8 except for this student who ended up still with that 10. You notice that it will turn green. Here it goes. And then if I go to final grade mode, I've got 2 assignments linking to that standard for reads and comprehends. I'm going to say yes. Make sure you always save. It will kind of catch you, but if you were to close out and you don't save, it's gone. So now we've got all of our updated grades. You notice that so far we have 2 assignments. One was worth 10, one was worth 25, for a total of 35 possible points so far this year. All right, so that's how you would create a assignment to push it to those standards, that standard level. If you would do the same thing with math, you could do that. So I could say, we're going to say multiplication demo 1. I'm just going to leave that the same way there. I'm going to make this math homework. I'm going to make it 100 points. Scores published. We're going to push it right to multiplication facts. And we're going to say save. And we're going to make sure that that's there as well. You know what I didn't do is put the right date. That's difficult to remember. There we go. Refresh class info. You notice that it pushed it to the multiplication facts. I can go ahead and put some grades in here. Oh, I'm just going to go ahead and type these in. 87, 98, 78. And every time I hit enter on my keyboard, it gives me the next student down. And then I'm just going to go ahead and fill scores for the rest of them. And items with no score, I'm just going to say everybody else gets a 75%. There we go. And now I'm going to add another assignment. We're going to save that one. Add another one. We're going to do another multiplication. Let's say we do this one Mad Minute. And we're going to name this one MMM1, Mad Minute 1. We're going to say this is a little quiz. We're going to make this worth, let's say, 30 points. We're going to publish that score, just because if we're going to include it in the final grade, we should publish it. We're going to make sure the assignment score to calculate standard scores is turned on. We're going to do this multiplication facts. And I did the same thing before. I didn't change the date. See, that's tricky. All right, we're going to hit save. It will take a couple seconds here. We're just going to refresh our class info. If I'd already put it in the correct way, we wouldn't have to refresh the class info. We're just going to go ahead and do a fill score in this case. Replace them all with 30 points. So right, 30, yeah, 30 points. You notice that it came over here to 30 points. And we're going to save it. In my final grade mode, it took that and started averaging some of those grades. Okay. Over here, it won't matter what you put in the different categories. So for example, let me add something with a different category here. So this time we're going to do math homework. We're going to call this demo D1. Make sure I put the correct date in. And we're going to include that in the final grade. We're going to publish that. But this time I'm going to pick a different standard. I'm going to pick this one, division. And we're going to hit save. So now what we have is, now we're going to have 2 assignments. I'm going to get everybody 100 on this. Oops, fill scores, items with no score, 100%, 100 out of 100. You notice it pushed to that level. If we go to final grades and we're saved right there, you're going to notice that we have a push grade to multiplication facts, and we also have a push grade to division. But you also notice that of all the homework assignments that we've given, even though they're in different categories, it lumps them all together so we can see what their homework score was basically, and how many points they've gotten in homework over the course of that marking period, and how well they did in homework. So you can kind of judge whether they're having trouble with homework or are they having trouble with the quizzes. That's a good place to do that. And again, that's in final grade mode under score sheet. So if I come back, here's my 2 assignments. You notice that they're pushed with the green. If I was to take, let's say this student right here was absent that day, I could just mark, we're going to go ahead and change this to missing. There is no necessarily absent, but missing, that works too. I know it has a little different idea behind it than that, but the other thing you could do for this one is, but there is no absence, so missing is the best you could probably do. You can do this, the score inspector on this, and that's what the score inspector looks like. And you can do a comment here if you wanted to for this student's missing assignment and just put absent in the comments. And when I close that, it does give a C right there. It's very small. You notice that there's a comment absent, and it's missing because they were absent. So that's about the best you can do in terms of like showing that they were absent. There is no default. There's nothing we can turn on that says it's an A for absent, but you could make a comment if you needed to. So if you notice here, now there's a little C and there's a little M. So if I was to come back over here and hover over the student's name, you notice that there's a comment, and the comment is listed right there as absent, and it's also, we know that the student was missing that assignment, so that needs to be something that needs to be made up. So that kind of helps the parent a little bit know too, like why was that student, why was that missing for that student? Why did my daughter not turn that in that day? It's because they were missing and they were also absent. Unfortunately, there's no like A or something that we can put in there, and there's nothing that we can do to turn that on. It's missing, and then you need to add the comment as to why it's missing. Not turned in, student lost it, or they were absent the day, or maybe even they were tardy, and they didn't get a chance to get that done. So there's a couple different features there for you. I think that kind of gives you a pretty good overview of how to create an assignment and push that to the standard level. If there's anything else, please let us know, and we'll try to guide you in the right direction to make sure that the gradebook's working the best for you. Also check the information on the Muskegon Area ISD's Muskegon Area ISD's Power School website. There is some really nice gradebook tutorials and some features in there, and some help in terms of how to do this and how to do that that we probably didn't cover today. So make sure you check that out. Once again, have a great Halloween, enjoy the night, and stay safe.